So this morning I've been working for probably at least, gosh, it's embarrassing, maybe 2.5 to 3 hours. What I've been working on is laying out the sill location on the slab. And I did a couple of other things. Let me back up. Yesterday we spent 2 hours or so getting this beam where it's supposed to be. And I ran this string down to just see how we did, because I got these wing plates on last night and that is really good. So then that led me to the next bottleneck, which is getting this plate that is going to bear this post down to the foundation. If you remember, there's actually a huge footing. Well, not huge. We put a 3-foot footing underneath here. There's actually big 5-foot pier footings underneath where the other posts are going to go. I really want to get that post installed, because then we can work on getting the other posts installed, and then we can start putting some of the floor framing up and get this darn beam more secure. We actually had originally purchased a post base for this post, but in talking to my engineer, I said, isn't that going to just sit on the sill plate anyway? And the conclusion we came to was, don't need the post base, that's just double work. So we'll actually end up bearing it on the sill plate. It's amazing how much we have to transcribe these measurements down to the slab. To compound that problem, once we got those lines moved down and all the measurements made, there just magically appeared a 1/2 inch. And it took me over an hour to find it. When Alyssa and I snapped our lines for the sill plates, we snapped them on the inside of the plate. And we did that because the outside of the plate actually overhangs the wall. So we couldn't use the outside measurement, which is the control. What's important is the outside measurement, not the inside. So because wood has tolerances, it turns out that our sill plate material can vary as much as 1/4 inch in width. So when I went to pull my measurements off of these wings and transfer them down to the slab, I gained 1/4 inch on each side. So as I laid out my measurements on the front, I have a mysterious 1/2 inch that I can't account for. So that's the 2-minute synopsis of the last 3 hours of just transferring measurements down. The reason we're doing it this way, we're using a lot of reference type framing, kind of, is because the foundation is never true. It's not accurate. All we care is that the second foundation, in this case the sill plates, are reasonably accurate and square and plumb. And I think I was mentioning yesterday that we wanted to make sure that our vertical sill plates, which will go here, are plumb. And I couldn't think at the moment why that was so important, and I figured it out. Because we're using SIP panels, those SIP panels will adjoin the SIP here, or the sill here. And if the sill is crooked, or it's out of plumb, then the SIP panel will not seal against that sill very well. And we are actually better off spray foaming in the gap that's going to be right here. Spray foaming in here and then siding over all this stuff to conceal it. You're going to conceal it anyway. Then we are trying to fudge the SIP panel. Now I've actually made some headway and I'm ready to start cutting and placing the sills here along the front. Just a quick recap. What we did was we plumbed down from each side of our plate above and made a crow's foot, and we did on each side, and then we snapped these chalk lines. So this represents the outside of the sill plate, obviously. And then yesterday I made some plumb marks for my vertical sills. So this distance is the thickness of my sill plate vertically. And then this morning I laid out using both sides to verify my measurements are correct, where this sill here will terminate. This will be open for the garage door, which will be an 8-foot garage door. And then here we've got a 10-inch sill plate, which will be the gap between the garage door and this man door, or woman door, or whatever. This human being door, this Homo sapien door. And then we've got another sill plate here that will be the gap between this door and the garage door. And again, this is the sill plate that will bear this post. Then here, a 16-foot wide garage door. And finally, the sill plate and vertical sill on the other side. I just had this realization when we were working on this steel beam. In my mind, I was thinking that, I don't know why, I was thinking, oh, you know, it needs to be pretty centered, but if it's a little off, it'll be okay. And then as I'm working on getting this darn sill plate that's keeping me from cutting the post for this beam, I was like, wait a second. The timber frame bears on squash blocks that go between the I-joists that transfer that load down to this beam and then down to this post, and of course down to the foundation. And those posts are big, but I don't think we really want that post to be offset by an inch from the post above it, you know, so we'd have this kind of dog-legged thing going on. So now that I'm really sitting here thinking about it, I think it does matter. And I'm pretty confident we got the measurement correct, but before I get too carried away, I think I'm gonna spend a little more time measuring, because drilling in concrete, something you really only want to do once. Because I have this string up here, definitely makes it a little bit easier to measure. I can make a mark on my string, you know, where this center of this beam should be located, and that'll make it easy. I'm pretty confident it's where it needs to go, but let's just spend a little time measuring. So I thought I'd just plumb down here and see kind of where this post is going to end up on this plate. So it looks like that post would actually need a little bit more sill plate over here in order to bear fully down on the foundation. Well, there you have it. I think it looks great. Threw some sill seal on it. So hopefully that post will bear exactly right there. Thought I'd take just a moment before I forget here and share a quick tip in case you're doing pretty much anything that requires string lines. See this rat's nest? So I finally figured out why our freaking string does that every time. At first I was thinking it was mostly because when we roll it up on the string, you know, you're not taking the twist out of the string. But I've concluded that it actually has more to do with the fact that this string is twisted. If you look really close, this string is actually a twisted string. This string is braided, and this braided string behaves completely differently. That doesn't mean that if you tie it in knots that it won't get all tied up. But look how differently this behaves, how straight this string is. This string was that straight. And as soon as you start doing anything with it, look at this. It has just crazy amounts of twist in it. Costs the same at the store. So when you're buying string line, look for a braided mason's line versus a twisted mason's line. And I think you'll save yourself a lot of headaches, and you won't have to constantly be switching your strings out. So even though I have these sill plates cut and bored and ready to attach, I'm actually not going to attach those. There's a slim chance that Alyssa's going to have time to come out and help me this afternoon when she gets done with some of our other chores. And those are great tasks that she can work on while I'm doing a lot of this problem solving. We found that sometimes 2 people, you're not even close to doubling productivity or even single productivity. In fact, sometimes 2 people just makes a lot more questions and it ends up just taking more time. So I'm trying to kind of get through some of the things that I can do that are more problem solving, mathematics, stuff like that, so that when she's ready to help, we can kind of just cover some ground. I actually need to do some work laying out. Well, first of all, I need to lay out where the posts are going to go. So I'm going to use my plumb bob, and I'm just going to plumb down from the corners of these brackets onto the slab. And that'll tell me where the post is supposed to go based on the beam. And then I need to do a little bit of kind of backwards research and look at some of the photos and videos and things that we have for our radiant. Because obviously there's quite a bit of peril in drilling into the slab with the radiant there. We did do a fair amount of pre-work to make sure that there was no radiant where the posts were supposed to go, but never hurts to just take a little extra time to check, right? When we laid out our radiant, it's on a 12-inch grid. Where the posts go, there's 12 inches between tubing runs, which is pretty generous. Except, to be honest with you, an 8-inch by 8-inch post, that only leaves, what, 4 inches on each side of the post? No, 2 inches on each side of the post, where if you drill, you're done. So I was a little freaked out, because that's pretty tight tolerances, because I mean it's nothing for that radiant tubing to move an inch. But I got the post bases, which we're using a Simpson Strong Tie 8x8 concealed base, and this is what our engineer specified for this application. So this is what you'll see, is this concealed base. So the post will actually bear on top here. All this base does is keep it secured, so that if we were to hit it with a car or something like that coming in the garage, it wouldn't knock the post out and effectively make the whole entire house crash, right? The weight of the post will actually be on this guy, but you can see there's no fasteners. And I think it's important to share this because we've been following our engineer's instructions meticulously. There's a few exceptions there, but they recommended this post base. And if you look, this post base is only 4 inches wide. And the way this works is this base goes this way, just like that. And the post is going to slide on, and it's going to slide into that bracket there. This is almost like miraculous because the tubing runs are 12 inches apart, something like this. And this base is only 4 inches. So that gives us a generous amount of space out here where we can work without having to worry too much about the radiant. Of course, that's all hypothetical. I need to do some research and put it all together. But I wanted to share that because we've been leaning on the shelter to advise us. And I know when they recommended that we use these Titan products, these big, huge concrete anchors, man, I was so not enthralled because my experience with drilling concrete has always been quite poor. And we just needed to open our minds and learn a little bit from the experts. It turns out with the SDS hammer drill that we did an unboxing of, that thing drills like butter. It's amazing. It just goes right through concrete. No big deal. And I totally see now, I understand clearly why we don't use J-bolts, because these plates are so difficult to manage that you really want to just get them where they go, drill in, and bolt the sucker down. And this is just one of those things. The reason I bring this up is this base is like $55 freaking dollars. 55 bucks for this little piece of steel, that little bracket, and a couple of pins. But I know I'm trusting the shelter because they've been so good to us. They've been honest with us. They've given us alternate products where we can use them. But sometimes they're like, we'd really recommend you use that product. I mean, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, it's your house. But we would recommend that you use this. And I'm really glad that we've done that, even though it's not cheap. These bases, you can buy a standoff base for $15 but they take up a lot more space than those do. Well, everything checked out really good. Just looks kind of weird to my eye. Funny how shapes and things do that. I think I'm gonna play around a little bit with the tape measure and kind of just spend some time measuring some things because these post bases are so critical. Probably overly cautious, but I feel like it's so critical. We have so many wonderful people coming for the framing workshop. Shelters coming. I mean, we want our home to be quality too, but I'd really hate to let all those people down, have them come all this way and we've made a mistake and, you know, jeopardizes the project. I don't think that's gonna happen, but I think taking due care, can't be too careful with a project like this. Bugaboo. There's a few people that say you should be in our videos more often.
Yep.
What have you been doing, Buggerfish?
He's been sleeping.
You been
sleeping in the RV. He's been in the RV since about 3 a.m.
Oh wow.
On the bed, curled up with with his paw over his face.
Oh yeah, he's pretty cute. Bugaboo, do you have anything you want to say? Do you want to sniff it?
If I squeeze him a little, sometimes he meows, ready? Just a little bit.
Mom's figured out the meow button.
Yeah. He's pretty happy.
Bugaboo, do you know where the radiant is? Do you remember where we put the radiant in the slab? You don't know?
Man, we just keep feeding him, but he's never useful.
I'll have to check your notes.
He does keep the trailer mice free, though.
He does. Bugaboo, do you like big long wood screws? What are you doing? Are you inspecting my work? Now what? Now what? Oh, do you want to play fetch? Hey. Do you want to play foam fetch? Foam fetch? You can't even catch the foam. You
should catch birds, all right.
You are sleepy, aren't you? Oh, that's the one. Oh, that's the one. Yeah, according to our photographs, our rebar's right on the clean out there. And so they're 12 inches on center. So in theory, we've got rebar and radiant here and rebar and radiant here, or somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. So according to this,
and our holes, if we're like 3 inches off, we're good.
Yeah, according to this, we're almost over 4 inches here, and like 6 inches here.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Do you text Eric?
I did.
What'd you say?
I said we're about to play Radiant Minesweeper. Wish us luck. I'm not even. My sense of humor with this is like so low. I'm so scared right now. I'll make a quick comment about Warmboard, which is coming on Monday. The bottom of the panels are marked. They've got lines on them, which tells you where your tubing runs are. So if you ever need to like run a wire or anything like that, you don't do this.
Ready?
Yeah.
Fire her up.
Are you gonna watch the pressure gauge?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. This is pretty scary. Ah! Okay, keep going.
No, I gotta drill a different hole now.
Oh, so you got one.
Well, we're
1 out of 4.
1 for 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready for hole number 2?
No, not yet.
Okay. Ready?
No pressure. I'm ready.
Okay. I don't even know what to yell if like we lose pressure. Do I just scream or? Okay.
Still pressure?
Yeah?
If we were gonna hit it, we'd have hit it a long time ago.
Cool.
No one's ever ready for the geyser.
Woo. Wow.
Told ya.
That's dirty.
So if we're gonna hit the radiant, we'd hit it in the first inch.
That's good.
You'd hit it immediately.
Good.
Because the radiant's really close to the top. Yeah. Not 6 inches down.
On to hole number 3.
That's two for 4.
That's
We're
good.
at 50% success right now.
Yes.
You came out here at the most exciting part of today.
I know, right?
Today has been very boring, lots of calculatoring and plumbing, and here I am like...
3. We're good. Away with murder.
Man, oh man.
We should go play poker tonight or something.
not done yet.
Let's go gambling.
We're not done yet. Oh boy, last one.
Woohoo!
I think we're gonna make it. This drilling holes near radiant thing is not for the boys. It's
Nope.
for men with big, you know what's,
Ears.
big ears.
I really think we should go buy some lottery tickets.
I'm not a gambling man, but that's probably the higher end of my gambling
Yeah.
traits. Yeah, that's not fun. Whatever we could do differently, you should do that. Not
Yeah.
like us. Don't be like us.
Exactly.
Be like someone else who does it differently. Well, I don't know if I can take much more excitement for the day. That drilling around that radiant, man. I think I'm gonna work on getting these 2 sill plates screwed down. And then something else. Oh, I need to paint. We got a little bit more paint for that post bracket there. So probably we'll work on getting that done. Then I think it's probably gonna be dinner time and bedtime. And hopefully we'll get a nice day in tomorrow. I'm really hoping that we can start working on sawing or milling the posts for that. We've got some timbers that we've already had for quite a while, and it'll be fun to get the sawmill running again. Well, I hit another piece of rebar there. Cool, another one done. Nice, feels really solid. This is the last hole for today. Today's been highly successful. We dodged the radiant roulette. I wanted to share something that probably might be new to some people out there who are not builders. And that is, I think when a lot of people think about building a house, they think about how the walls go up and the roof goes up and the foundation and, you know, and all this stuff. And sometimes you see a building like in town, say, that you kind of drive by one day and there's people working there, and then you go by and there's like a little bit done, and you go by the next day and there's like walls up. And then you go by and the stuff's happening, you go by and stuff's happening, you go by and stuff's happening, and you go by one day and there's a roof. And those days between where you see stuff happening are spent doing probably a lot of preparation, material acquisition, and what I would call layout. And I would say that layout, in my opinion, is probably 80% of home building for us so far. The building part is actually flippin' easy, you know, within reason. It's the layout that is time consuming, and I think a lot of people probably would agree with me when I say that the more time you spend on layout, the less time you'll have to spend building. But if you shortcut or cut corners on layout, the building gets to be just a nightmare. So today, I probably spent over half the day doing layout and maybe a quarter of my day building, but that layout done wrong will have lasting effects throughout the building. And I speak to that because I know when we've done a couple of workshops in the past, we've created a lot of excitement, and we were excited too. And I think maybe some of the people who came for those workshops might be a little frustrated because we didn't get to do as much work as I think we all thought we were going to do. And part of that was because we ran into layout problems. Something came up and we just couldn't proceed. And I think that building is just that way. So far, it seems like some days a whole bunch of stuff changes, but then other days, or even 2, 3, 4 days go by, and it's spent measuring and marking and laying out things and snapping chalk lines and doing a lot of things that the house doesn't look any different. I think it's dinner time. I am really excited about tomorrow and getting these posts milled up. It's going to be fantastic.